Good afternoon. The Building and Facilities Construction Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 21st at 4:02 PM will now come to order. The first item on the agenda is the progress of the highway building project. Matt, I'm sorry, forgot to introduce everybody for the recorder.
Linda Brown.
Fred Fontaine.
Bob Worm.
Matthew Benoit.
Matt Wojcik.
Shirley Masinski. Okay, highway building project. Thank you. If you have any updates for us.
So we do, in terms of formal steps, we've hired an appraiser to review the real estate, and I'm not exactly sure when that appraisal is going to be performed, when the walkthrough is going to be, but the appraiser is O'Hara, Mike O'Hara, out of Worcester. The name of the firm is O'Hara Buthray. They're commonly used for commercial appraisals, and that will be an important part of our conversation at Springtown meeting.
Okay.
Identification of resources and our ongoing discussion with the owner. As far as the building proposal, conceptually, I think we've pushed back pretty hard as a town on the architect. We really, our last conversation was kind of bright line, and basically said, what you're talking about right now is just not feasible for us. We're not going to accept this as a direction for the concept. It's just too expensive. We want you to think about a different approach to getting a similar building built without going through sort of the classic Massachusetts model with, hiring an OPM and from outside and doing a lot of complicated maneuvers in terms of the design of the building. So we're researching other options, and right now that's in the capable hands of Selectman Fitzpatrick, who works in the industry and has some leads that he wants to follow up on. The notion is building kit that's prefabricated that we would purchase, and then you would purchase the labor portion, you would hire the labor in competitive bid separately. And the notion is you're cutting out the markup on materials, and just the fit and finish won't be the same, but it was to be a highly durable building. And then utilizing, if there's one structure on the property, if we were to obtain the property, we feel like rather than tearing it down, we would use it. That's in very good shape, and it has everything that a day-long office space would require. So ample space to actually work, pre-existing electrical connection, pre-existing septic disposal system and fresh water source, and bathrooms that work. So I don't know that it makes sense to tear something like that down just to build something that does the same thing on top of it, because you say it's nice and uniform. If we're going to be that far off the street, we don't want it to look ridiculous or dilapidated, but it doesn't have to be anything spectacular either. So the research is ongoing, but that piece, that appraisal, is absolutely essential to what we're doing at Springtown meeting. So it's underway.
Questions, anybody? Linda?
So the appraisal is for the original property we were looking at, behind the highway line.
A little bit further back.
Has a house on it?
Yeah, so there's two pieces. So if you follow that easement all the way back,
Right.
go past, I believe the gentleman's name is Tatro. If you go past Tatro's piece where he's got all the stone, because he used to do stone work in people's yards,
Okay.
and go up into the woods almost towards Cardinal Way off of Rydell. There's two fairly substantial lots back there. One of them has a home that's being rented, and the other is pretty much open,
But
empty space.
so it's off of that easement?
Yes,
Okay.
it is actually, those are the properties that are the primary beneficiaries of the easement, because they're the furthest to go. But they
Okay.
also have access, one of the addresses is Rydell, so there's access to Rydell as well.
Okay.
Fred?
Is there a gate leading to a long driveway that goes to the house?
I think so.
I looked at that house before we did. Very familiar.
It has to be a quiet spot.
Yeah, a nice spot.
Anyone else? Fred? I'm sorry, Bob?
Nope.
So is Weston and Sampson out of the picture?
Well, no.
Okay. They're
No,
still,
but I think it would still be best if they drove this, because they have the time to commit to bringing the bid documents together.
okay.
But for the time being, it's like, the approach you're taking, I don't think that the approach they're taking is wrong. It's just that it generates, it almost, French word, I guess, would be fait accompli. Like, once you decide a certain number of decisions down the decision tree, you're kind of left with no place to go, except a fairly expensive package. And that is just not what we intended to be able to do with this. It's one thing to say you need to advocate to town meeting and persuade voters that they should go for it because it's a good deal for them. There's a limit to what you think that upper bound is, and I think they're consistently over it. So they've got to change some aspect of what they're doing. So we're going to give them alternatives here.
Yeah. Linda, one
So it
more?
would be like a package steel building compared to like the fire station, which is brick on the outside,
Well,
trim and.
I'm not even sure we've gotten to the point in the design
Yeah.
where they've specified exactly what it would be, right? Conceptually, all we've seen is an elevation, and it was pointed out that the elevation didn't correspond with the description. Right, so the last meeting we had with them, the picture they showed us didn't match the words that they showed us. But, you know, when you look at the thing, you say, all right, that's plenty of space for the equipment. It's what we want to do is preserve the equipment and prevent maintenance issues and deterioration of town assets. It's just that if we end up custom designing it, you're paying a little more,
Right.
and it might just make a little bit more sense to pour our own slab and pare back the project this way, right? It's a relatively flat site. It's a great place to learn, right? So it's not like it's a minefield out in some former battlefield somewhere in Europe. It's if you want to turn somebody loose who doesn't have a whole lot of experience with an excavator to do a lot of the rough work, then that's how they learn, but you're also saving that money. You're not having that crew sweep in from Maine, right, that's going to GPS everything and make everything absolutely perfect. There is a point at which you reach that level, but if we can save thousands of dollars by doing some of this in-house, I think it's keeping in character with the taxpayer's expectation of that skill set and the people that work in that department, but it'll also save us a lot of money. To me, the nightmare is to not have sufficient operating cash or capital in the form of free cash or reserves to pay for those aspects of the building project that are just, it's a service that's provided and then now you pay for it for 30 years because you didn't have the money and you roll it into the bond. That's terrible, terrible management. You can try to avoid it if you can. So we want to get, the only thing we really want to pay for is the materials and the labor that goes into assembling the building. We don't really want to have to load up the bond with all the rest of it spent. So that's the goal anyway. It doesn't always work out the way we planned, but that's the hope.
Okay, so you really don't have any idea as to whether this is going to be ready for town meeting?
Well, I think
Just the
we're increasingly
initial-
skeptical, right? That
Yeah.
we're going to be able to hit this, and it might slip to November.
Okay.
For the land or the building?
The land we're hoping to do in the spring town meeting. Yeah, annual town meeting, I should put it that way.
Okay, Fred, did you have another one, question? Okay. Bob, you're good? I did forget to mention that Ray Clontis has been excused. He told us he wasn't going to be able to make this meeting. All right. Administration report on projects in progress. The The oil spill, are we doing any better?
Nothing new here. We really can't work down, have not been able to work in the basement because we had one of the cast iron chambers and the new boiler, not new boiler, new to you, not new to me, boiler, let go. So we had the thing torn to pieces and the building was off.
Since, that was the last meeting, no?
Was it? I don't know.
I thought there was something regarding that.
Yeah, I wrote last week, Municipal Center had no heat, there
Yeah,
was water in the
that
oil
was-
tank.
Yeah, oh, that was
There's
it.
water in the oil tank, so we turned it off and we figured that it's probably a vent pipe that led to condensation in the tank. That was one issue. No, this is a
Okay,
completely
this is
separate issue.
another one.
I
Okay.
have some really charming pictures of water squirting out of the side of the boiler. It looks like a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. And it's under warranty, so the parts are covered, the labor is not. So, but it was a significant repair, but it means that we can't do anything down there, because obviously,
So,
there's
any,
stuff in the air from all of the chemicals you use to clean up, and
right,
the antifreeze hit the ground and all the rest of it, so. But
so
this,
more oil?
no,
Okay. Anybody? Questions? Okay. Green communities, do we have any more grants? Possibilities?
Currently, but the Innovus team is doing the LED retrofit in the high school currently this week. It started Monday.
Oh, the lights.
Yes.
Yeah,
It started Monday. They're expecting to finish by Saturday. And
high school.
once that project's closed out, we could then apply for additional grants if we get projects.
Okay. And do we possibly have some?
We had some for review previously from Innovus. and,
Yeah.
Yeah, we can re-examine those.
Okay, so you'll be doing that? Thanks. Municipal backup generator?
he gets off way easier than,
No, he's,
this is just, you guys.
come on. We'll keep you both going. How about the backup generator?
Did you see it?
Yes,
How could you miss
The
it?
whole thing?
yeah,
That's the thing.
the thing.
I thought it was maybe that's just the motor, I was expecting this huge.
Tanks underneath.
Get up and walk up to it real close. It's big enough.
Yeah.
It's big
So-
enough.
So where are we with it getting,
All right, so the generator was going to be delivered when it was going to be delivered, right? So
Yeah.
the slab was prepared, the crane came. It was a fun thing for town hall employees to watch that thing get craned over. It was good work by the crane operator. And there it sits. It will be up to the weather now on how fast we can move. But next steps are, all of the wiring is going to be done on this end, so from the generator to the building. And the very last thing that will happen is a cutover. So National Grid is going to move the power supply to the generator, and then from the generator to the building. All this, I believe the storm switch is going to be outside, I'm pretty sure, housed outside. And on that day, when we do that cutover, we will not have power in this building. We will have power because a portable generator is going to be brought in, but only those things that are wired right now for the generator will be plugged in that day.
okay, finally,
And then
huh?
we'll load it up and see how it works. It's been a long time coming, but
Yes,
hopefully by the end of March, this project will be done.
okay, any questions? All right, municipal main roof replacement. Are we out to bid?
So here's the schedule. A couple of us are going to meet with Weston and Sampson on Wednesday at 10 to review the 60% design. The proposed bidding schedule is that after we review the 60% design, on Thursday, March 7th, so the meeting at 60% will resolve any issues that are required to get the
Okay.
plans to 100%. On March 7th, we'll place the advertisement in the Central Register. Documents will be available to bidders on the 13th of March. On the 21st of March, we'll have a pre-bid meeting with all interested bidders here at the Municipal Center. And on April 4th at 2 o'clock, bids will be due. With construction duration to be 120 days from the notice to proceed.
Okay.
So that'll put us
Questions?
in late spring, early summer.
Anybody on the schedule? Hopefully we can get it and get it done before next winter.
Yep.
Municipal fire alarm, we're still on
roof.
hold till the roof is done. And one question back up on the roof, that bid included the gym, the
Correct.
elevator.
So town meeting merged those projects and increased the funding.
Yep.
We'll do it all.
Okay. All right, fire station upgrade, which is the generator electrical.
So there's quite a bit of progress being made on the final electrical design. I'm going to tell you where we're ending up. I think we've tried many, many ways of sticking 10 pounds of manure into a 5-pound bag, and
Ooh,
it
that
just won't work. So I think what we're really starting to look at is pouring an additional slab and kicking the building to the left and building out the space that's necessary to accommodate the needs of the department. Utilizing, so in your mental image, you know where the kitchen is, and then there's a doorway to the outside that's just to, if you're looking at the kitchen door, it's to the left, but that would be a hallway, right? And then you would go into an additional room for sleeping quarters. That's what we'd be building, it's 4 rooms, sleeping quarters, on the outside of the building.
So that's what's,
That's the current state of play, because
Okay.
we've tried a couple of different conversations. One was just utilizing the day room, which is a large open
Right.
conference space like this,
We got that,
breaking it up
yep.
and making it into sleeping quarters. There are some issues there with access and workspace for people, privacy. Then going back to the concept of going upstairs and raising the second floor, so having some dormers. The building is truss. So
Yeah.
once you start cutting trusses up on a building that's settled over this long period of time, you're starting to get into some structural workarounds that by the time you pay the architect, you pay the engineer to make sure all the structural things are right, and now you do a pretty extensive work on the roof, the scope creep, it's actually more expensive than to put 3 walls and a roof on the outside. So that's kind of where we're ended up. We know we need that mechanical room space to be fully utilized for electrical components.
yeah,
So it's not really available to do anything else, absorb any demands on space. And, we have a lot of brand-new equipment. It needs, we really don't want to be moving things in and out and inconveniencing the response that comes out of the building. So that's where we're at. So that again, is Weston Sampson that's been tasked with that.
okay.
How is
Linda?
Richie doing?
Good, so they're the ones making a lot of progress on the electrical.
Okay.
Obviously, if you put 4 sleeping quarters, you'll have some additional electrical work, but that's mostly receptacles and minor wiring. As for the major system components, I think we've made a lot of progress towards being ready.
And the generator?
The generator will be replaced, and it's going to be, the tanks are going outside, right, and will be like this one. It'll be either under or right next to the generator itself. I think they're planning to put them, as they'd say, in one socket side by each, right? So rectangular
Yep.
tank next to a generator.
And is that ordered yet, generator?
Oh, no, we're not there yet.
Okay. So that's
That's
yearly?
substantially smaller than this one, so the market's going to be a little bit different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fred? Bob? Anything? Questions? No? Okay. Stormwater management. Have you had an opportunity to look or research any towns with stormwater bylaws? I think Linda mentioned Mendon.
But it's more for the municipal side
Yeah.
of stormwater
Yeah.
management, not townwide.
Anybody else? So, comments?
So I think what we're going to default to here is two things. One is our existing stormwater management assets and facilities, which are maintained by highway now, will continue to be maintained by highway. We're just going to have to continue to refine our plan. We've been trying to catch up. Some of the BMPs that were installed a long time ago have been overgrown, right, with small trees and vegetation. They need to be cleared up. Highway's been putting those into the work schedule a little bit of time each year as the summer schedule allows. We're going to continue to try to catch up on it.
What's it gonna be?
Best management practice, so it'd be any infiltration pond, sedimentation pond, rain garden, the things that we use to collect water. Not unusual for them to be part of the roadway acceptance when we do a subdivision. But you wouldn't, a lot of these places you drive by and you just think it's woods, right? But if you really look at it, you
Yes.
can see that there's an enclosure there, you know,
With a big hole in it.
with a big hole in the middle. But nowadays, Noah's Ark, I guess, required. And then the other piece of this would be just improving the overall regulatory framework of the town, which doesn't require this committee's action. It requires select board review and planning board. Really, the planning board has to pick it up and run.
You can, as a board, support if you want to. I think some of us, including myself, have had some issues with stormwater. And I'm sure other roads, some of the main roads here in town, and really, they need to be looked at maybe in a different light than what, I know people voted it down years ago, but it's definitely a problem. Some areas, some of the roads are deteriorated because roads go down into like a valley, and the next thing you know, it's up on West Street, there's a bad situation. And our road recovery here are the monies we have to keep putting in, being on capital and hearing this, yeah, it's not good.
It's not good. There are different gradations of this, right? So if you're in an urbanized area in eastern Massachusetts and the community is able to marshal considerable resources and people are very used to, hate to say it this way, but being in each other's business, then having a stormwater utility, so to speak,
yeah, that's-
is the step that they take. In a more rural community like this, where people would prefer not to be in each other's business, the only thing that we have to mention as a town government back to them is that doesn't mean we can be laissez-faire about the way water is managed. In the past, I think, when the town was looking to be of some kind of assistance to anyone who wanted to develop anything because you wanted to keep moving the town forward, you might not have leaned as hard as you might now with respect to roadway specifications and the inspection of roadway projects before they're accepted by town meeting, making sure the standards are met. I mean, I'm not going to, well, I feel free to name this one street. The way Sunset was built would never happen today, right? So a lot of steps have been taken to prevent substandard roadway construction from plaguing us in the future. Because ultimately, once town meeting accepts the road, it is now your asset, and the expense of maintaining it is on the taxpayer. So it really is actually not just in your interest to see the development occur, but to make sure that you're not taking on a terrible asset that's going to require thousands and thousands of dollars of investment. And if we look to the forecast for 10, 15, 20 years from now for the cost of pavement and all of the time and labor and material that go into pavement projects, I would put that on the list of things that's going to be wildly more expensive than it is today. So we just want to make sure it's done right. The statistics really do show that regardless of your point of view on grander scheme political issues, just the amount of rain that gets measured in Worcester County every year and reported as an annual total, over the last 10 years, you've had 6 of the wettest years on record. So something is different, and when there's a lot more water coming down, it has to go somewhere. So designs that were adequate for Worcester County when 27 inches of rain fell a year may not be adequate now that 54 inches of rain are falling a year on a regular basis, year after year. So we're just learning, that we're seeing the weaknesses in the system, and they can't be allowed to just go down public roads and tear the roads apart and then dump onto somebody's property at the end. Stormwater bylaws typically put a pretty significant burden on developers to come up with plans to maintain stormwater on the property when they develop a parcel. And first and foremost, that is a level of responsibility that in today's day and age just is the cost of doing business, and the ultimate user will have to pay for it. That does put a deleterious effect on the cost of housing, but at the same time, it really isn't right to build a neighborhood and then have all those rooftops and driveways channeling water or sending water to the guy who's in the lowest elevation. Because that's just really not fair. There are ways around this, the ways to manage it. So that's what I think the bylaw is going to aim to do, and to set standards for the amount of water that. So measurements, if I'm correct, and this is where you're going to have to jump in, but measurements before the lot is developed to determine how much water comes off it.
Yeah.
And that is the standard. The standard isn't zero. The standard is you can continue to allow to fall off your property what was falling off before you developed it.
Correct. Yeah, so you can't increase, but you can maintain or reduce the amount of stormwater that comes off.
So we have a vehicle, legal counsel has reviewed it, and I think we're going to follow the same path. It'll go to the select board for a quick discussion, but it'll be referred to planning board for public hearing. I think we should still do it that way.
Yeah.
I think you want to gain public input, and the planning board is the best place for that to happen.
Conservation is too, because they'll be
Yeah.
part of the ground.
So that doesn't mean that this board can't support it or encourage it or whatever. It was brought to us.
Late now.
Yeah, yeah, well, fine.
I begged, and the chair agreed.
No,
I would rather stay at planning board 100%.
well, absolutely, but I understand now where Matt was coming from, because it's an issue that affects homes that are being built
We
or already
manage
built.
thousands and thousands of dollars of worth of stormwater infrastructure.
Our own road.
Our own roads
Yeah.
and our own intakes. And that's kind of what I was thinking, is that
Yeah.
there needs to be a plan for maintaining and upgrading that system. And where is that going to reside? But we can cross that bridge when we get to it.
Right.
We don't really have a vehicle for that right now.
So we can leave it?
Yeah.
You want to leave it on the,
I have a question.
yes.
So you're comfortable with the direction that it's going, and you don't need assistance from this board at this time?
I think the conversation here helped refine what it is that we're trying to do. I think the day will come, and I think it's part of our MS4 anyway, where we will need a plan, and maybe part of the master planning process, it'll be incorporated as to the town, what the town has already invested in and maintains. So we know from that one sidewalk project that was voted down at town meeting, that it made it to town meeting, but it's still lost, right?
Yeah.
A large portion of that cost of that sidewalk project was actually the improvement of the stormwater resources in that little section of Main Street. That gives you a sense of what we're dealing with in terms of expense, once we start trying to deal with all the water coming down a roadway. So,
All right? We can leave it and come back to it, see what progress, if you're comfortable with this, what progress you're making at each meeting as to where it is, and discuss it again. You good with that? Okay, thank you. No more questions? You're good? Okay. Vacant buildings in town. Matt, you have any comments? I know
I don't, did Capital take any action on funding?
so far, I
Demo?
believe one, tear down of the Brown Building up next to the cemetery.
Okay.
There is funds, according to Capital, but will it stay on depending on how much money
How
Capital...
many more of our trucks break down between now and?
How much Capital is going to have to work with. So, right now, and that's the only one, even though there are the other old buildings that we checked into, and there is the danger of the towers on the old fire station that we're aware of.
I have a
Yes.
little information. We had discussed Gleason Court, whether it was a official town road at the last meeting. And I was looking at old annual town meetings, looking for something else, and I came across it, that it was May 4th, 2015, Article 11, that Gleason Court was approved as a town road. I'm not sure, there weren't any, there wasn't a map with dimensions. I didn't ask the town clerk, but
It only goes to a certain point.
that could be.
And then the rest of it is a right-of-way easement.
But where that certain point is, I don't know. It could go just to the old,
Old elementary school, yeah?
It doesn't get that far.
oh, it doesn't
so-
even go that far?
No, it doesn't.
Maybe just to the old post office
Right.
parking lot?
Yeah, that's just about it.
Okay.
So the rest of it would need to be accepted as public way. I sent out for estimates for 3 surveyors, and I haven't got any estimates back yet,
Huh.
but I'm still chasing them down for those.
Okay,
That was something that has this little company this book.
yep.
Yeah.
Because you all got maps or...
Easement through those 2 parcels.
Right.
It should be.
Right. And that, what date was that, Linda? May 4th, what year?
2015.
Okay. I think that was when the road to the old elementary, I mean, the new elementary and the middle school and down, the connector.
Could be.
Yeah.
That was also when the selectmen took it back from the school,
Yeah,
the old.
yeah, okay, good. Any other comments on Fred, you were instrumental in getting us to review the old buildings that we did review. Anything else?
No.
No? Okay,
So before you move on,
yeah.
I have a suggestion for future agenda. The post office lease is coming up. Now, I'm never emotional. I never get impatient with anyone.
Right, sure.
And, I'm just, patience of Job,
He's trying to convince us.
fishing for muskie, 2,000 cats.
Get to the
one
point,
fish.
Mr. Administrator.
These people are driving me nuts.
What people?
The post office, they don't really pay the town very much money. It's $51,000 a year, which is a crying shame. It's not even close to the value of commercial real estate. And I have department heads that have really significant space issues. So earlier you asked me how things are going. I said I have problems that everybody else wishes they had. I think people wish that their senior center was as busy as ours. But running the bus has made it possible for a lot of people who are homebound and couldn't come to the center to come to the center. So we are now actually busting at the seams in terms of not having enough space for all the people that are attending programs. And that's a really great problem to have. The people, the overwhelming majority of these folks are Douglas residents, taxpayers. So the service is having its intended goal of making the senior center a focal point for a lot of activity. So you know where my head is going, right? I've got a postmaster who likes to complain a lot, a building that does need some periodic upgrades that are not inexpensive, The more significant issues with the building are the windows are old and not the most energy efficient profile in the building. But is the current occupant the highest and best use of the building, giving other town demands? And, yeah, I'm always going to be partial to the town, and I realize, though, that a lot of people are really, really, really passionate about their P.O. box. So they want to know that there'll still be a post office in town, so there's obviously, we can't just pull the pin and throw the grenade. You're going to have a conversation and see if we can get them to move on the rent and maybe make it a little bit more worthwhile for us, so they're increasing the operational resources of the town, maybe to develop space in one of these other vacant buildings or other buildings. But the current arrangement isn't working, and it would be almost in our best interest to take the space back and utilize it. So that's a question. It's firmly within your mandate, is also within the mandate, because there's a legal relationship here for the select board. And so I just think we should, again, start a dialogue about
Okay.
what it is that we want to do.
So you want for the next meeting discussion of the use of the post
I want to
office
start to brief you on, building dimensions and
and bring information for the board?
lease rates
Okay.
and options. I mean, it's one thing that, I just don't know where the post office would go. They don't build the nicest things. I think that building in Medway that they built is hideous. Is that Village Street?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's what they're going to give us, you almost want to keep them where they are, but
Okay, so,
it's a big part of the history of the town. It's probably one of your most iconic, other than the Congregational churches with their steeples, right, and the Jenks store. This building could be one of your, with its bell tower, one of your more iconic historic buildings. So, there does need to be a longer-term plan for how it's going to be utilized. But 51 grand a year just isn't cutting it. Like, the things they want us to do there cost 50 grand a piece. So they're not giving us enough revenue to keep the place going.
okay,
All right?
agreeable?
Do you know how many
Next.
square feet?
I don't. I can find out real quick, but just off the top of my head, I don't.
So we'll put it under, we'll put it on, we'll add it on.
For the, just the post office section, or including the senior center?
Just what they're paying the $42.50 a month for.
Okay?
There was a second floor to that, wasn't there?
The second floor is
It used to
a
be,
time capsule.
Yes.
Nothing has changed. If you stand real quiet on the second floor, you can hear Chief Foley's voice, right, echoing. The old cast iron bench is there that they used to cuff people on in the police station.
No, it was a radiator.
No, there's actually a bench there.
there is actually, I believe,
There's an old movie projector, because I think they were showing
Yes.
movies in the hall, that's still there.
there was a stage,
Yeah,
there was a balcony,
at the balcony.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Some of
okay,
them closed
we
up.
have a group of people out here waiting to talk with us, and the library asked to come and talk with the Building and Facilities Committee, so I put them on the agenda, and whoever is interested in coming up to the table, or bring some more seats if you'd like.
Another one of our historic.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. Post office is 9234.
Oh, I can move over to this one. You guys can all sit.
Sure. You're welcome to
So
come.
was that 50 cents a square foot?
Wow.
I want their negotiator.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's much higher. Nice.
Do you want to come over here, so you're not over there by yourself?
Okay.
That's her spot.
So we have Justin and Dawn Fontaine.
We have to speak up into the microphone.
please.
Because they don't pick up.
And my address for Kate Anderson and Ellie Chesbro.
Okay, welcome. So we will turn it over to whoever is the speaker of your group. and hear what you'd like to bring before us.
So I'll introduce us, the library trustees, speaking of old buildings. We, last summer, the trustees engaged the services of a library building specialist to produce a library building program for us. That was the document that I sent you. I don't know if you forwarded it to the rest of the committee.
I didn't.
But basically, it outlines what the NBLC, the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, thinks that Douglas needs out of the library in 30 years. If we were to apply for state grants, this is what we would have to build. It's a little bit ridiculous, I think. It prescribes a 13,605 square foot facility. To put that number in context, ours is currently just over 4,000. So it would nearly quadruple the size of the building to build out what they want us to build in order to be eligible for state grants. And if you use their price models to predict what it would cost, at the low end, it would be 13.2 million, and at the high end, it would be 19 million, and the town would be on the hook for 45% of it. That's not a scope or a scale that the library board, I believe, feels is appropriate to the town of Douglas, or it's not going to fly. But it has spurred a real interest in making progress towards doing what we can with the building. Because we've fundraised $237,000 so far. That's what we've got in the till. The town is in a much better financial position than it was in 2015, which is when we almost had some plans ready, but things got morassed in easements. And then, like the possibility for funding just evaporated. So the library trustees would like to, start dialogue with this board and ask questions and figure out how to move forward with, what we have with the town's resources and try to make something happen, because we're still not ADA compliant after working on it for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
And, we want to get this football, into the end zone and, make the library accessible for, seniors, for kids, for people. And, we have space needs. We have real space needs. But at the same time, we also have a current asset which has needs in and of itself, So what makes sense? The next grant round won't be till 2029 probably. But, this is still going to be what the NBLC expects us to build out and add 5% a year increase for, what they're expecting the, rates of increase on construction costs to be. If there is a more reasonable solution, which we could keep within, the scope of just, expanding on the back a little bit, putting in an elevator, updating our parking, getting our facilities that we have gleaming, we would be interested in, the roadmap for how to move forward, basically. And with that, I'll turn it over to the trustees, I think, because there's individual questions and
I don't have a question necessarily, but just to reiterate the last part that Justin said, I think all of us as trustees have been pretty consistent where we don't want a massive library. We love the building that's in, we love the central location. There's some parking issues, huge bathroom issue, a little bit of HVAC, and just space overall. And accessibility with the elevator seemed to make sense. We can, thought we could maybe add something on the back, get people to get in accessibly. But then it opened up a whole can of worms, and we keep going back and forth about how we go forward.
Okay.
We did vote
Ellie?
at our last meeting to pursue the accessibility as opposed to going for a full-blown everything. So that's, and what you have just said, Dawn, with the putting an elevator on the back and expanding the back of the library out there and working on the parking lot and putting an ingress and egress, whatever the right words are for that, for the driveway and a handicapped toilet. It would be unisex. It wouldn't be,
Right.
we wouldn't have 5 different bathrooms there. And I think the last time we got some plans done, they were, it was just sort of overwhelming what was going to happen.
Right.
So we sort of want a functional, accessible library doing these very simple things. And my questions are, well, also, I was thinking about Dixon Salo had done a drawing
Yeah.
for free for us about 20 years ago. And that one was, and I think I gave it to you.
I actually have it.
Yeah. And so it's, and that was almost the same thing that what we want right now, except for the parking lot, the going driveways in and out and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
One thing that might be interesting for the committee too is learning that, so we've got a parking lot with gravel there now, but it still might be a little bit limited long-term, but there's, as you know, the back of the library hits some residential buildings and Unibank and so forth. Not Unibank, Webster First. But there's a lot of easements with those parking areas, so if we needed more parking, that's another possibility, that there are multiple overlapping easements. We might be able to work something out with other property owners.
If we could find a way to bundle this project with turning like the land left over behind the library and, parking lot behind Webster First and the other parking lot, that's in front of the funeral home that hardly ever gets used into one massive parking lot. That would be really good for downtown.
Yeah, town municipal park.
But I wanted to know from you guys what one had to do to get moving more forward. Do we have to have a design in place, or could we use the Dixon Salo drawings and contact them? And what's the threshold of needing to get bids for architects and stuff if we want to go that route? Because theirs was so nice and simple. It really was.
And that's been our dilemma, is do we, put a significant amount of the money that we have saved towards getting some plans done, but then there's some understanding that once someone's involved in that process, they might not be able to work on the RFP for the actual build, and try not to spend more money ahead of time than we need to.
Anyone?
We're asking
Questions?
you guys.
Yeah. Kate, did you have any questions?
Yeah, that was, my questions were basically, what's the procedure to move forward? And there's, I know there's a lot of moving parts in town, things are happening, and, if there's ways we can fit what we need into the overall needs of the town, then I feel like we're, as a board working, we just sort of are talking in circles, and we need some outside perspective.
I don't know how pertinent this is, but the plan that Justin has from the consultants, a lot of that it was almost like more than a library. There were meeting rooms, there were education rooms, there were, individual rooms for different things that we thought would be, great to have, but it's a lot. It's like taking even some of the stuff that could happen here in the municipal center to the library, and some of the things that could happen at the school to the library, but we've got such a small library. Right now that's not feasible, so maybe it's some kind of combination of what else is happening in town.
I've got a question.
Linda?
So the Dixon Salo plan is just the building, or does it include the use of the parking lot?
I think it's just the building.
Yeah, because that's where I think it's tough, because it's such a small area. And the parking, I think, was pretty much an issue at the last go-around, too. Because of the Rivers bill, you'd need it, if it was tarred, you'd need and you'd have to be handicap accessible, you'd have to pave it.
Right.
And then that water's got to go somewhere. And that's a lot of engineering, so it's not as simple as you think.
Would you, the whole parking lot wouldn't be all for handicapped. It would be, what, 2 or 3, I don't know. What.
We don't know that. We're not the ADA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a formula for that.
So I have a question, maybe Matt Benoit can help us out, or you. I think
I like where you were going with it.
you want me to make him work, right? It's okay. I have read some articles recently about the pavement that, is projected and not being so much asphalt, but a different type of material so that water can seep
Yeah, so
through.
the issues you run into with permeable pavement is we sand and salt parking lots, and it just becomes an issue that breaks it down faster, and
Yeah.
it needs to be replaced a lot sooner. It's better in areas that you don't sand and salt.
Is that what's there now? Is that regrind?
Yes.
Yeah, just
And that's what you're talking about, right?
No, permeable pavement is a product that would come in, and you pay a premium for it, and its maintenance is impossible to upkeep when we have winters here in New England. So you don't see it.
Permeable means the water can go through it.
Yes, yes.
Because I know right now there's potholes there.
Right.
So what you've got is not going to last, but that's more like permeable,
Yeah.
that type of pavement.
So what is in there? What is that?
But we just had a crushed regrind,
It's regrind.
reground asphalt.
So is that considered permeable?
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's
what
also
you're
not
talking
considered
about
pavement.
is a
Technically, it's a gravel lot.
But if we had the formula for handicap parking, we wouldn't have to pave the whole place, right?
Don't
We would
know.
just have to pave.
We're not experts in that. You have to find
It
out.
might just make sense to pave it all anyway.
But then you
It's important to
run
pave
into
portions.
stormwater management issues, because it would be, you'd have to have a retention pond or
Right.
something.
The building commissioner is our ADA enforcement official.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he is on,
And, I don't think I'm stepping on his toes to tell you, at least, those spaces need to be within a certain distance of the entrance that's going to be used by the people. Then there has to be ample amount of space in between and on either side of those spaces for a wheelchair to get out and not be interfering with other cars or being, obstructed. And then the entire pathway from the farthest point behind those ADA spaces to the door absolutely has to be permanently passable by someone who has mobility issues. So it may only be 2 parking spots, but it's closer to 5 or 6 by the time you actually map out the pad.
Yeah. I'm not sure we'd want to kind of do half. We wouldn't really make most sense to do half.
Except that you're in the stormwater, not stormwater,
yeah,
water
Water.
resource protection area there.
Okay,
yep.
So the minimizing pavement would be an essential
okay.
objective.
So I have a question. When you hired the consultant, whoops, what
You said the
was,
C consultant word. They're expensive, and the dollar meter went off. No, there's a fire.
I know.
ambulance call.
So what was your expectation of the individual, or what input? I know I went to one of the meetings, gave my input, other people did, you people probably did, so that she could come up with a plan using the information that she got. And how much did she cost?
Her services costed $8,000.
Okay.
Her methods was where we did the focus groups.
Yeah.
We did community surveys. We had about 200, I think, and 14 responses to that. She took population projections for the next, 30 years in the town of Douglas, and then just based on what the MDLC says, you need, X amount of square feet per resident to adequately meet library services, just plugging in those numbers, trying to get the seats, struggling it around, coming up with flexible spaces to try to keep it on the minimum we could. And the hope was that we would get this and it would be a palatable project, which we could apply for state funding for and do start the grant process, because there's one, starting now. But, seeing these numbers is like, let's not kind of go up to that threshold, and see what is doable without spending, $19 million. because that's,
Yeah.
I mean, they want, because they're putting a premium on their funding, you know, like they expect every bell and whistle, since they're footing half the bill. So then it ends up being a super expensive library and a super expensive project and a very big one, you know.
Sure.
That said, I don't think our library gets utilized the same way a lot of libraries in the Metro West area, in Boston, and more developed regions are. I mean, even the differences between, you know, our patron base here, how Douglas uses our library and how Whitesville uses their library is a difference in night and day.
Right.
Because of, you know, like they have, you know, a lot more underserved population. Douglas is an affluent community. We're kind of here nestled, you know, in our boutique
Sure.
spot, and we're used as a boutique little library. And, you know, we have overcome the hurdle of our space so far by pumping a lot into digital stuff. And so, like, when you look at the rates of, you know, patrons who use digital resources over print resources, Douglas's are about 10 to 15% higher than any other community our size in the state, even ones that are a lot bigger. So, I mean, there's ways to address, I think, the needs of, you know, like, being a cultural institution, meeting people's literacy needs, delivering that content without having to have a massive, you know, monolith of a structure in which to have, you know, 50-person big programming, and, you know, like 75 seating flex spaces, which you can transition from, you know, early childhood use to teen use later in the day, which is what this plan calls for. You know, it's more than we need, quite frankly, I think.
I think she was actually, her whole report was geared towards
the grant
applying,
application.
yeah, the grant application. It didn't give us other options. It was just working at that.
Right.
I somewhat disagree on that. I mean, I think the way it's broken down, if you read it, it gives a ton of good information and, you know, good square footage that's needed for stacks, for seating. I think we can get a ton of information from this, and this is a document we could give to, you know, an architect or whoever, modified however we want to give us what we need.
You have a question?
So I think this was very valuable.
I mean, I don't even
Okay.
think we have to modify the document. We can just say, we want as much as we can get with this, but scale it back by
Yeah,
75%
and the
to
thing
fit
I
into
like-
whatever footprint we can manage.
What the consultant said is, you know, is try to, you know, come up with everything, every possible thing that you might need. You know, we you know, we took out the a few, you know, the walking paths and a few things, but still, she said you never know which parts of the plan that community members want might be able to squeeze into a final plan, because you just don't know what all the moving parts will be. So I think it's fascinating. I really love the whole process, and it was really valuable.
Fred, you had a
So basically, someday, you're going to go, well, we're going to go to the taxpayer asking them to pay for either the ADA, or, well, ADA has to come first, right? And the space. So you might want to ask them for this or that or both. So now you have to have a number to go to the town, but that's the rub. You don't know where the number, and you have to pay somebody to come up with that number. Basically, right? That's where we're at. So I think you're here asking how we're going to pay for this.
Well, like,
And
who
what
do
is the
we,
process?
who's serving?
What's the process?
Yeah, what is
Do we engage a structural engineer, an architect? Is this something that we should do collaboratively as two boards, or is this?
Is there resources that the town is already paying for that can help with this, to come up with this number?
Well, you know, Weston and Sampson is our house doctor. We signed a contract, and we assign them projects on an as-needed basis. You know, there's definitely a fee for their services, that's for sure. I mean, if you wanted to take an existing conceptual design, right, and say, we want you to value engineer this and try to get it to a project of X size, that's a discrete deliverable. So you might be able to price that out. And we could ask them in advance, well, how many hours would it take? It's somebody else's work. You know, these people are design professions. But my only query back to you would be, you know, so where is this thing going? Like, is there enough meat on the bones to justify spending that money for a value engineering project?
What do you mean by, is there enough meat on the bones?
And what is the value engineering?
So value engineering is exactly what it sounds like. So it's looking at what you're trying to get out of a building, sitting with the proponents of the project, stack ordering your priorities, and then downsizing the building, downsizing elements that contribute cost to the point where you hit a target. Either you, or you just take as much out as you can. So that, in a way, the plan you got was aspirational. It takes into consideration all of the feedback and all of the hopes that you would have for the building. But now value engineering ramps it back and say, well, like in the case of the highway barn, do you need 3 wash bays or 1? Do you need 2 mechanical repair bays or 1? And so you start to pare it back. And,
So,
you know,
Weston and Sampson is engineers or something else?
they're a very big firm.
Yeah.
So they have both architects and engineers.
Okay.
But we're still back to the point, well, we don't know how much it would take to pay them to come up with this.
I mean, I'm meeting with them Wednesday to talk about the roof project. I can tease out the idea, say, you know, you're working off somebody's set of plans.
Yeah, I've got the
Right?
we map.
So-
You want me to look at them or something, or make a copy here?
You know, leaving me with originals.
It's not a good idea.
It's kind of like rediscovering the
Copies in-
Bermuda Triangle.
Dining room for 25.
If you leave them with lease
We ate our
agreement, they
dinners
will
on it.
not get lost.
Okay.
But it's a worthwhile conversation. I can at least get some kind of data for you and help you make a
That's
decision.
exactly a good first step.
How much value would the past work that is done be? Because there's been a lot of, you know, like looking back, I mean, we had schematic design ready, you know, in 2015 with those drawings. Like, is any part of that salvageable? Like, looking, or does it just needs to be tossed in?
Now you're talking apples and oranges,
Yeah.
right? We're talking
Well,
about
that
working
was-
with your existing building versus, well, I think what you have is the plans for a new building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
For a new building?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, not a
No.
new building, not a new
No,
building.
it wasn't, the one Dixon and Salo
Well,
did.
that's what you're volunteering is the,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Dixon Salo are like modifying the existing library, but from 2 decades ago.
But this plan that you have sitting there is for a brand-new building.
Well, this is no
Necessarily,
plan, this is
no.
just a program that like.
That's a little different.
Says what, you know, like spaces we need.
Yeah.
And so like there's no
Okay.
drawings in.
I see.
Right.
Space at all.
There was,
all right, so that's what I was talking about, value engineering. You would value engineer
Yeah.
the project that's too expensive. If you want somebody to update Dixon and Salos, that's a different ask.
Or,
The code has changed, you can be sure, the code has changed
Yeah.
since then, so,
yeah, because it was about 25 years ago that it was
yeah.
drawn up.
But Dixon and Salo would also need to include, in addition to that, a parking lot design
Right.
for the handicap
Yeah.
accessible
Right, I don't
issue.
think that was in the.
Yeah, so that would also need to be
Added.
part of that.
As to your earlier question about procurement, there are a number of different ways to do building projects. You can, now, I'm going to be sketchy on the threshold. You just took a class in the last year and a half or so, but we're all hard pressed to memorize that grid with all the values, but at a certain level of value, you can do what is called design build. And sometimes you save money, right? So the firm that is going to actually do the construction takes on the added responsibility of being the designer. So you award one contract competitively, and they do both tasks. They design and they build. There is nothing, is it 150,000? 250,000? So we'd probably be over that. The traditional way would be you can do design selection, designer selection. Designer selection is here, with BFCC, and approved by the select board, although I think in this particular case, it's the trustees' building, so that might be the trustees' approval. But in any case, There's nothing that bars a firm that tenders a design from also bidding the construction. There isn't.
That's been our sticking point. That's was what we've been told along.
It's just that we have to police it carefully.
Okay.
Now, it's a little bit different with buildings, right? But I'll give you an example where it gets really sticky. Security cameras. We're going to put a large security camera system in some of our buildings here in town. There are camera manufacturers that have a great deal of interest in who wins that bid, right? So when we hire them, and because they're the only ones who have the design capacity, when we hire them to do the design piece, we have to wag our finger at them and say, do not specify proprietary products,
Okay.
right? So Rhode Island was so different, there were no rules. So if I really wanted that, catch basin cleaner that had a specific brand name, I simply had to specify a certain gauge steel in the crane, because only that company
That made it.
made a crane arm that durable. So by specifying that, I basically said I was going to get the one I wanted. Can't really do that in Massachusetts. There can be no proprietary specifications at all. So now in a building, I think that's less of an issue.
Okay, we can work with that.
But that's kind of a bridge that needs to be crossed a ways down the road after the first step will be you getting a super rough number.
Well, just whatever set of plans the trustees are going to leave me with, right? What do you want me to present to them as the potential project? Is it the upgrade of Dixon Salo, or is it going to be looking at the
I would
$13
think
million
so,
building?
I mean, that's what we basically voted on
Yeah,
last month.
right. But that gives more numbers, more like square footage that you need and how many books you can shelf with X amount of space and all that. So if they can work together, I think.
Was there any new, it's been a long time since I looked at the Dixon Salo plans. Are they adding new floor space, or are they just,
I can't remember. I gave it to Dawn. She has it all. Is it right here now?
It's right here now.
I'm honestly not sure which plans we're talking about.
Yeah, there's so many.
That was my,
Yeah, Dixon Salo was about the second people that came in, and the first ones had handicapped accessibility with a big ramp going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
back and forth. Yeah, so that was silly. And you couldn't see the front of the library anymore, and that's what a lot of people like to see. So, and then Dixon Salo did it for free.
Stains on it.
oh, man,
I thought it was a bigger.
we've been making funnel cakes with these plans?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just so you know, there's someone on Zoom if you want to ask if they want questions.
oh, I'm sorry. Danielle, thank you. Danielle Morrow from the Library Trustees. Do you have some questions or comments?
Somebody muted me. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, these
Okay.
are Socrates.
I think that's Dixon.
It says the group leader-
Hold it.
the group administrator muted me.
I did not.
No, it's just when you
So
enter your...
that's what I was
your
told.
muted.
So anyhow, I just want to applaud the other trustees for their brilliant presentation of questions. I'm focusing on just what we
What's different?
need.
What's changing?
Going from the building project, like Justin has said, is for, so many parts, to the basics of what we need. Our goal is to meet accessibility requirements and to welcome everyone into, am I there?
Yeah. Yes, we're listening.
Okay. To welcome everyone into the library who wants to come. So the four components are an entrance, an elevator, parking lot, which I heard you discuss in detail, and restroom.
Yeah.
So those are the four components. To pare it down to that's what we need to be compliant. I did a little research into some ADA requirements, and I gotta spend more time going down that rabbit hole. But just trying to get our feet on the ground on this. We're striving to move forward, we're really focusing on moving forward with doing something to improve the quality of life in Douglas, basically.
Okay. Anybody have a question for Danielle?
Yeah, but.
Thank you for your input.
Just do this, but
We'll see where we go here.
that would be basically.
So what's your thoughts? Have you found the Dixon and Salo?
Just, squaring off, extending in the back a little bit, and making use of whatever space is generated by that, and squaring off. So I
Yeah,
don't know
don't
if
make a
that's the
face
best
like that.
way to go or not.
Don't make a face like that.
Well, I mean, I don't think that there's like plans here to draw back from. It would be
So
starting
I have
from
a
scratch.
thought.
Something bigger at home.
Okay,
I'm not meeting Weston Sampson until Wednesday, so today is Wednesday. We have a week if you want to
okay.
refine what you want me to show them.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, we have a meeting on Tuesday, so,
If we do have a meeting on Tuesday, that would be perfect time.
yeah.
You're meeting them with a week from today, right?
So,
At 10 o'clock in the morning.
So really not.
Which for me, living
Yeah.
south of Providence, means I will leave home at about 3:30 in the morning and get here at 10.
3:30 for 10? I don't know, you could be in another state.
I'm
really?
exaggerating, but.
No, yeah, I hear you. All right, you think,
Was that subtle? Was that subtle? Was it 5:15?
yes, I hear you, and I have a meeting at 6 something, so, but you're okay with bringing this within the budget of Weston and
I don't
Sampson?
have a problem having a conversation with them, getting a number, going back to the trustees and trying to identify resources.
Okay.
Is that what you're looking for?
I have a
That's
question.
part of
Linda?
what we want.
I'm sorry?
Like I said, we have a meeting next Tuesday at 5, so any information that we can get ahead of time to share with the rest of the board would be greatly appreciated.
That, okay. Well, I'm sure Matt will do what he can with Weston and Sampson and get it
But I'm looking
to,
for you guys
yes.
on Tuesday to decide what you want me to show them as the potential project.
Right.
Okay.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
Linda?
So any funding, if we were to get Weston and Sampson services, would that need to go through town meeting?
It's town money.
Well, it depends on what source you want to draw it from.
But you're going to try to eke it out of them in your current, what, just being friendly.
I'm going to try to get them to tell us what they think it will cost.
Yes.
And we can identify after that what the sources of funding would be. And the authority for different sources of funding will be different depending on which the trustees decide to use or
Yeah.
ask for.
Yeah, good.
Whether it's the money you've raised or whether it's town money, it's a different path for authorization.
It's slightly confusing. You're going to find them how much it would cost to pay them to come up with what it's going to cost? Or
Yeah.
how much it's going to cost?
No.
No.
What it would,
What it would actually cost?
What, no?
No.
And you're going to ask them, how much would
We're
it be
gonna
to
take
pay
those What
you?
are basically cocktail napkin
Yeah,
drawings and say, this is generally what conceptually the trustees are looking to do.
uh-huh.
Now, to sharpen this up and bring it up to modern code,
Right.
and they might say, well, before we give you a cost estimate on the cost of that design work, we'll go look at the building. That might be the most I can
Yeah.
Since we are trying to build a relationship with them over time.
But we don't want pretty. We
And
just
maybe
want
someone
function.
has
We want Sherman tanks.
Yes,
Exactly.
for bathrooms.
Keep a licking and keep on ticking.
So any other questions beyond that? That needs to be answered first before we can answer any of the other questions regarding funding
Once you
or
have a
whatever.
budget for the design work, then it
Right.
will go back to the trustees to determine whether they think they want to go forward with that.
Yeah.
Right, that
Because
sounds
it's likely to
great.
yield a project that's much more affordable than the MBLC consultant came
Yeah.
up.
But we do, I don't know if I want to offer this, but we do have our own funds set aside for this kind of thing, so
As to how much?
that's the 200.
Oh, you volunteered, she went right down that.
476.
476, okay.
And some money I haven't given to Justin yet to put into that.
Yeah, it's growing. It's a growing number.
If any of you have deep pockets, we welcome them to be emptied in our
You got to speak up.
Well, for one, it's a town asset, the town, why it's not 88
I know.
today is kind of weird, actually.
Fred, don't go
I
that
know.
way.
So
Don't
I'll
go
look
there.
forward to supporting, myself, supporting getting this done.
I have over the years, and this is where it is, so.
That's because it wasn't bare bones plan.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
It was,
So-
the community has changed, and I think the
Yes.
usage pattern in the library has changed.
Yeah.
A lot of these electronic format things, I mean, your usage numbers are way up. It's a different
Yep.
value proposition
I
today.
use the library all the time, and I'm amazed at what a difference. You're doing a great job.
Yep.
Here, here.
Okay, if that's agreeable with you?
Yes.
Because we have people that need to get home and people that have meetings, and I don't want to cut you off, but this has been helpful.
It's a good start.
Yes, and we'll keep you on and have you back to see where you're going. Is that okay with everybody?
We meet once a month, so we'll see you in a month.
All right,
Yeah, that would be good.
okay.
When's your next meeting?
It's always, unless there's a problem, it's the third Wednesday of the month. Sometimes our members cannot meet, and if we don't, I always know if we're going to have a quorum. If we're not coming to not be able to vote.
March 20th.
Thank you.
So,
At 4 PM.
4 PM. Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, we
I
have,
will send you an email on Tuesday night.
It's going to be on.
all right, yes. So just quickly,
I have medical procedure that day.
well, we can always change it.
That's up to you.
No,
Good time.
let me know. It's okay.
Thank you.
We can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just quickly, electrical charges, replacements, you asked me to put that on.
Just because it's, again, it's in your bailiwick. I think you've discussed it
Yeah.
at some length at Capitol. We discussed it at the Board of Selectmen last night, some of the issues. I've already updated you. I've told you we have permission to rip and replace. Now we just have a funding request to the Capitol Committee.
Okay,
We've gotten quotes from several vendors.
okay.
But there's another issue, which would be installing chargers at the school campus, and the superintendent has indicated a willingness for that, but that's investigatory work. It
Sure.
won't be Green Communities. It would be a different program
Okay.
through National Grid. But again, it takes up spaces.
Yep.
So the parking asset needs to be thought about.
So, okay, so it's not ready to,
No, but we have to go, I think today was another one, was that felt really bad for this guy. When they come in on the flatbed,
Wow.
it's not going anywhere. So he gets dropped off, and I didn't notice, I was heading out to lunch, and I looked over, and there's this guy with the car, and he's trying to hook up, all four of them are broken, and the tow truck takes off. Right, I'm thinking, oh man, right? So he gets all the way down to the memorial here at the corner of Martin and Depot, and he turns his lights on and pulls a Huey. He must have realized they weren't going to work, so he came back. He didn't get too far. But it's a shame, because we're not that far from 146, so we get this from time to time. People are really kind of on the edge, not being able to get,
Yeah.
go where they're going. So,
They do say out of service.
But
No,
it doesn't
unfortunately-
know it when
no,
you're on.
unfortunately, you know, the issue isn't necessarily the hardware out there, it's the software that runs the entire apparatus.
But they're
Doesn't-
broken, they should
No,
say.
one flash is available, it says it's
Oh.
okay, then you plug it in.
Oh.
It won't talk to your phone, which is what you need
Yeah.
to activate it. So it's really aggravating for people using it.
All right, anything else? If not, Mike or Matt, sorry, Matt and Matt, any other things? that-
Oh, I have a question. What about the minutes? Have we lost a minute?
No, we don't have any minutes at this
Yeah,
time.
I know we don't, but
And
It's been
I
a while.
will check into it. Okay, I will. Upcoming meetings, March 20th and April 17th, unless we have to change for people and issues. All right, if not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Fred, seconded by Linda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted, and we are at
5:23.
5:23. Thank you.